The famous staff and ticket section of the main line between Casino in northern New South Wales to Acacia Ridge in Queensland has been removed and replaced by a modern CTC system. This is a fine example of the maintenance deficit. The staff and ticket system was an excellent example of rail safety technology from the 1880s, which was all still alive and well, working on the interstate main line between Sydney and Brisbane in 2008 and in the centre of Melbourne in 1998. It required a driver to get out of the train at each signal location, get out of the train and go over to a signal box, and out of that signal box go to a dispensing machine and get one of these out. And this came out of a dispensing machine, has an individual number and shows the location the driver can go to. And he goes then the next 20 kilometres to the next machine, gets out of the train, puts this back into the dispensing machine and then gets another one out and signs for it. And then goes back onto the train, 4,000 tonnes, and drives along for the next 20 kilometres. It's a bit like a relay in running, except the driver has to get out and keep on signing the framework in and getting one of these things called a staff. There's only one of these staffs for each section in each direction. And the reason it was safe is only one person, one train could ever have the staff. And in that fact was brilliant rail safety in 1880. It's safe because only one train can have a staff, and therefore no other train can enter the section without appropriate staff. Very similar to running a relay. It required to stop every 20 kilometres. Over 1 hour was lost in transit time as a result of this activity, and litres of fuel were wasted. In 2008, it has gone. It probably should have gone in 1958. The investment program of over $2 billion north-south will provide a springboard for rail market share growth. It will not be sufficient to address the market requirements in an environment of increased fuel costs and a program of carbon emissions in the transport sector. ARTC's submission to Infrastructure Australia in July 2008 outlined our analysis of the transport sector as a whole based on 3 scenarios and costs predicted for 2017 and 18. We have now updated our transport market analysis to take into account the Treasury paper released a few weeks ago entitled The Economics of Climate Change Mitigation and the latest World Energy Report released by the International Energy Agency. In releasing it today, the updated analysis of the transport market, we have incorporated a new scenario which takes into account the 2 new reports and produced our most probable scenario. And the probable scenario has in 2017 oil price per barrel at $85 US, Australian US exchange rate at 70 cents, labour rates increased by 22%, truck contributions to road access charges increased by 10%. All of these are in 2005 prices. Given this scenario, and assuming the market responds rationally and infrastructure was in place in 2020, what would it mean for our transport sector? Rail market share Melbourne to Brisbane would be 83%, an increase of 3.4 million tonnes per annum, or over 346%. Road market share Melbourne-Brisbane would be 17%, a decrease of 2.3 million tonnes per annum, or 73%. Rail market share Melbourne-Sydney would be 45%, an increase of 5.8 million tonnes, or 617%, and road market share Melbourne-Sydney would be 55%, a decrease of 3.1 million tonnes. Melbourne-Perth would see a significant increase in sea, from approximately less than 24% now to over 40% of goods travelling by sea, or 40% of the total market east-west would be in sea, rail would be 56% and road 4%. The most dramatic increase for rail would be Melbourne-Sydney, Sydney-Brisbane and Melbourne-Brisbane. This possible scenario is seeking to put a marker on the horizon and is a clear illustration of why we need to address the infrastructure and structural issues if we want our economy to continue to grow and at the same time reduce our carbon emissions. We know that the outcome of infrastructure projects benefit generation after generation. The creation of infrastructure has also immediate economic stimulus effects in our sort of economy. ARTC's prime objective has been to revitalise our rail infrastructure and make it a realistic competitor to road and value add to our national logistics infrastructure. We've still got a way to go, but we're working on it. Every night, though, we see an almost endless stream of heavy trucks leaving Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane and Canberra, heading for interstate or intrastate destinations. Hundreds of trucks. Over 1,500 metre train can replace 100 trucks. What I've advocated is a transport mode shift to the benefit of our economy and the environment. There's an ad running in the US television at the moment extolling the virtues of rail over road. And I've converted from imperial to metric the figures in the ad and the ad's message. Just a tonne of freight can be carried 680 kilometres by the use of 3.7 litres of fuel. Road can't do that, rail can. Through AusLink, Infrastructure Australia, and through the stimulus package of the Australian Government, we can develop a rail system that overcomes decades of neglect. We can provide a transport platform which adds value to our economy. The rail sector has a positive role in reducing fuel usage and our nation's carbon emissions. But to do so, infrastructure and rail needs to be addressed. The price settings for commercial trucks and commercial rail for medium to long distance for the use of infrastructure needs to be progressively adjusted. Unless we do so, the costs of our goods will substantially increase, with the obvious consequences for our economy and our economic prosperity and our national competitiveness. These are not issues which can be solved tomorrow. However, the roadmap for the adjustment needs to commence today.